your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition.
Hello, I'm Naveen Day. Thanks for joining us this Saturday, October the 18th. After relentless attacks from the Conservatives, the federal government appears to be getting tougher on violent crime. Justice Minister Sean Fraser is expected to introduce legislation within the next week that will make it bail more difficult to get. Prime Minister Mark Carney says under the proposed changes, it will no longer be up to the Crown to prove why a violent criminal shouldn't be released.
With so-called reverse onus bail, it will no longer be up to the Crown to prove why someone should stay behind bars. It will be up to the accused to prove to the court why they can be trusted to be released. Their risk of reoffending and their history of past 10 years will be considered. These strong new reverse onus bail provisions will apply to violent auto theft, to break and enter, to human trafficking and smuggling, to assault, to sexual assault, and to extortion involving violence or violent threats. Canada's new government will also toughen sentences for repeat offenders of auto theft, of organized crime, and of home invasion, so that criminals who have repeatedly victimized your community do not have the chance to do so again.
In the same news conference in Toronto Thursday, Carney also announced his government will hire 1,000 new RCMP personnel and invest $1.8 billion over 4 years to increase federal policing capacity. Following the Prime Minister's announcement, a local criminal defense lawyer is calling this new measure problematic as it pertains to the rights of her clients. Kara Lebenson from Strategic Criminal Defense in Calgary says not only will it be harder for people to be released on bail, it may also be unconstitutional.
It's quite concerning when we hear the Prime Minister coming out with some bail reform that might go contrary to our clients' rights under the Constitution or under the Canadian Charter of Freedoms and Rights. And that's, I think, what we're looking at here are some proposed amendments that might be problematic. One of the most important principles in our Constitution is the right not to be denied a reasonable bail without just cause. That runs in tandem with another essential constitutional right that accused people have, which is the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So in that whole interim period before you have your trial, it doesn't matter what charges or crimes you are accused of, before the eyes of the law, you are presumed to be innocent. To just say that every person charged with these certain offenses, regardless of who they are, regardless of whether they're innocent or guilty, should just be detained and stay in jail, that is not in line with our constitutional principles, and it risks putting innocent, very vulnerable people in jail for very long amounts of time in a way that goes against their charter rights.
The Deputy Chief for Lethbridge Police Service also weighed in on Thursday's announcement. According to LPS research, approximately 6 to 10% of offenders are responsible for up to 60% of crime. Deputy Chief Gerald Grobmeyer says they're watching developments relating to bail as it may determine whether or not they bump into the same offenders time and time again.
What happens with the bail hearings directly impacts us. Although the police aren't the ones to determine whether somebody is released or held in custody, we make our arguments. But what comes out of that directly impacts us. So individuals that are arrested and charged, which we put through to a bail hearing that we think maybe should be held for court, that are released, are generally out on public again with a piece of paper saying not to do crime. They've been doing crime anyway. So anytime that people are released, it certainly affects us because many times we end up having contact with those individuals again. Most of the violent crime, a high percentage, so well over 90% of violent crime, the offender and victim are known to each other. So it could be a relationship or a friend or having to do something with a crime type. We have very little stranger to stranger violent crime.
Lethbridge Police recently introduced an integrated offender management system earlier this month, aiming at reducing recidivism. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appears to be turning into a war of words. The Israeli government is accusing Hamas of not returning all of the bodies of dead hostages.
Israel has so far only received the remains of 9 of our hostages who were either murdered on October 7th or murdered in captivity. We are demanding Hamas release the remaining hostages, the 19 hostages whose bodies are still being held inside of the Gaza Strip. A callous, barbaric terror group is continuing to hold onto these bodies as their families innocently wait to give their loved ones a dignified Jewish burial.
هناك صعوبة بالغة بسبب أن هناك دمار كبير جدا ولذلك المطلوب معدات. نحن الآن نطالب بمعدات لإدخالها من أجل التمكن من رفع الأنقاض وإيجاد الجثث.
Provincial health ministers met with their federal counterpart in Calgary this past week, and Federal Minister Michelle says she hopes to build on renewed collaboration with provinces and territories to protect the country's healthcare system. Michelle says interprovincial credential recognition and funding agreements are up for discussion. Also Thursday, Michelle announced Ottawa is investing $10 million in Alberta's Kickstand program.
This innovative approach makes it easier for young people and their families to find the help they need quickly without a referral from a healthcare providers and at no cost. At Integrated Youth Services Hub, a young person can walk in and access a range of health, wellness, and social services all in one place. These are safe space for youth where they can access timely help.
The Alberta government is expected to release a third-party report into health contracts in the coming days. Former Manitoba Judge Raymond Wyant was to determine whether any staff at the Health Ministry, Alberta Health Services, or companies involved in contracts properly disclosed and addressed any potential conflicts of interest. The allegations, none of which have been tested in court, stemmed from a wrongful dismissal lawsuit filed earlier this year by the former head of AHS, Athana Metsalopoulos. The RCMP and Alberta's Auditor General have also launched investigations, but have not yet released their findings. Premier Daniel Smith's government has denied any wrongdoing. In a statement released on Wednesday, the group Friends of Medicare says no matter what's in the reports, a full public inquiry needs to be held into alleged corruption in Alberta's surgical procurement and contracting processes. Tensions over Alberta's independence have resurfaced as Bill 54 reignites debate on the province's right to separate. But beneath the political discourse lies a deeper question. What would happen to Indigenous lands and treaty rights if Alberta ever left Canada? BCN's Heidi Echevarria attended a session sponsored by the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs and spoke with Blackfoot leader Dr. Mike Bruised-Head from the Kainai Nation.
It's not going to happen. We'll probably take it all the way to court, and 42 bands, there'll probably be 42 lawyers and federal lawyers. They better be prepared to fight in court.
The message was clear. Any discussion about Alberta's separation would have to start with addressing historic land claims.
But before that happens, give us our land back. Erase the land certificates from 1905, and that's the point I'm making. We're going to start from scratch, then give us all our land back, and then we'll talk. But I don't think anybody wants to give us our land back. Look at all the farmers and resource people and people that have benefited from our lands. They're not going to give it back.
Although separation remains hypothetical, it highlights real, legal, and moral challenges regarding Alberta's claim to lands still covered by treaties with the Crown. For many Indigenous leaders, treaties are not just historical documents, but living agreements.
The MLAs and the Premier need to understand and get very well educated on the treaties. I don't think they are, because in a way, as people say, we're all treaty people. Let's reinterpret that treaty and give us our land back. It was not a land surrender treaty. Never was and never will be. We have opposition from all different levels of government and the ordinary citizen. It's not going to happen. Those minority groups of people thinking that separation is great for us, for Alberta, it is not good for anybody.
Despite talk of separation in Alberta, treaty obligations are still at the forefront of the discussion. For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echavarria.
Talks aimed at finding a solution to the Alberta Teachers strike have stalled. The Alberta Teachers Association says it presented a new proposal to the province on Tuesday, a proposal Finance Minister Nate Horner says would require almost $2 billion more in spending than the government had set aside for a deal, to which ATA President Jason Schilling responds.
$2 billion is $500 million over the course of 4 years of the agreement. So that is something that is responsible. It is something that is achievable by government. We are the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada. In order to increase us to be to the average in budget 2025, you would have to have seen more than about 13%, and public education was funded at about 4.5%. So there's room in there for government to move. They know this, and we expect them to come back to the table to have further discussions at that space and not necessarily in the media.
The union says the Tuesday offer included a phased-in approach to achieving manageable student-teacher ratios, a counter to the government's 3% annual salary increase offer, and new language designed to finally begin addressing the increasing complexity in today's classrooms. Horner says the door is open for further discussion, but no more meetings have been scheduled for now. The roughly week-long strike by some 51,000 teachers is affecting some 740,000 students across the province. After the break, we talk about how the province has stepped in to help parents amid the teachers' strike and spoofs and scams that popped up shortly after. Welcome back. We have more now concerning the teachers' strike as well as other issues concerning Southern Alberta. With the teachers' strike dragging on, applications opened Tuesday for parents to apply for support to help cover the costs of keeping their kids home from school. Here to comment further about this is our legislative correspondent with the National Post, Tyler Dawson, who sat down with Jeanette Roche.
So Tyler, when it comes to this support for parents from the province, there's also additional daycare funding support based on income, right?
Yeah, so the way it all works is you've got this $150 per week per child, as long as that child is 12 and under, that the government has. This is sort of new funding that the government has come up with in the last couple of weeks. But there's also sort of a fee guide or a schedule of funding for out-of-school care and daycare, and the rate that the government pays is higher in the summer than it is in the winter and the fall, I guess, because children are normally in schools. The government is shifting back to its summer fee schedule in order to support parents through the teacher strike. And as you mentioned, it is based on income. So the highest amount goes to people with an income of less than $49,000, and it sort of decreases as one's income goes up. So that's something that is probably not available to all parents in the province, but certainly will be helpful to some. And then there's also funding available specifically for parents of children with disabilities. There is a $30 a day and a $60 a day payment that is available to help with the costs of taking care of those kids while they're at home. And as anyone who has kids or has friends who have kids knows, this has been a little bit of a challenging time, especially for those who maybe can't work from home or don't have older kids that can stay home on their own. So they've been scrambling a little bit to find alternatives to keep kids home from school. And so these costs will be diminished slightly by the government spending on this one.
Shortly after the Parent Payment Program portal was announced, parents were warned to watch out for spoof websites imitating the provincial government's portal. Our BCN's Heidi Echavarria has the details.
Added to the stress of not being able to send the children to school, now Alberta parents are dealing with attempted fraud. Alberta ranks third in Canada for fraud incidents per capita, with 169 cases per 100,000 people, according to the 2022 Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre report. This makes it especially important for parents to be vigilant when applying for programs like this. In the same vein of staying cautious, it's important for parents to know that the government of Alberta does not send out links. People should go directly to its official website at alberta.ca.
Scammers, again, are opportunists. They're very good at what they do. These are professionals. These are professional fraudsters.
Forewarned is forearmed. The more Alberta parents know about this scam, the better they can protect themselves.
So they don't hit a link that's being sent by an email or a text. When you hit a link like that, it'll send you to a spoof page, which is fake. Use some good digital skills there. So make sure you're on the legitimate website. Look for anything that looks funny. It might have weird grammar, might have wonky grammar, or kind of look funny. That's a sign. It's a red sign. Unsolicited link. Very important.
For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echavarria.
Alert in Medicine Hat says the search of a suspected drug production house has led to the arrests of 2 people and the seizure of a substantial amount of illicit drugs. The home at 12th Street Northwest was searched on October the 9th, where authorities believe the house was being used as a lab to alter fentanyl. About $135,000 worth of drugs were seized, including 598 grams of fentanyl, 102 grams of meth, cocaine, psilocybin mushrooms, GHB, and over $5,400 in cash. 43-year-old Denai Lance and 36-year-old Aaron Greenwood were arrested and faced numerous charges.
We started this investigation in probably the third quarter of 2025. So then on October 9th, my team, the Medicine Hat Alert team, assisted by the RCMP Clandestine Laboratory Enforcement and Response team called CLEAR, plus our patrol section and some of our tactical members, executed a search warrant on a home in Northwest Crescent Heights. Drug production, it's not normally what we're faced with. We're usually faced with trafficking. Somebody will bring drugs in from another community and then it'll be dispersed throughout our community. And in this case, the drugs still may have been coming from outside the community, but they were being altered, or we use the term stepped on and changed. It's extremely dangerous to the community. It's hundreds of doses that could go out into the community, and we all know that fentanyl is a deadly drug. And getting this off the streets makes a huge impact in our downtown core and throughout the community. It's massive.
Lance remains in custody as she also faces numerous charges for failing to comply with release order conditions. She'll appear in court October the 21st. Greenwood, however, was released from custody and is expected to appear in court on October the 28th. Alert also worked with Lethbridge police in an operation targeting downtown drug dealers that have resulted in the arrest of 7 suspects and the seizure of drugs and firearms. Following a search of a problem property on Laval Road on September the 16th, one man, 44-year-old Andrew Hall, was arrested. Alert located varying amounts of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine, along with 2 firearms. Alert alleges that Hall supplied drugs to street-level fentanyl dealers who predominantly operated in the city's downtown. 6 more drug dealer suspects were linked and subsequently arrested. All face a total of 28 charges in relation to drug trafficking and remain in custody. They will all face court appearances on October the 16th. Alert, who began their investigation back in June, will continue its investigation by determining if the seized firearms can be linked to other crimes and suspects. A Calgary man has been charged by Lethbridge police with multiple counts of attempted murder after appearing to deliberately run over a group of pedestrians October 10th in a parking lot. The first of multiple criminal acts committed by the suspect in Lethbridge that same evening. BCN's Landon Hickok has more on that story.
Behind me in the parking lot of the visitlethbridge.com arena is where a man drove his vehicle into a group of pedestrians, hitting 3 and narrowly missing 2. It was about half an hour before the Hurricanes were set to drop the puck in a home game against the Portland Winterhawks when police started receiving 911 reports. The male suspect fled the scene before police could arrive. All 3 pedestrians that were hit suffered serious but not life-threatening injuries and were transported to a local hospital in stable condition.
We received a number of reports from citizens throughout that evening. I would encourage anyone that has additional information or that hasn't already reported to police to come forward and do so.
Police then got calls of a nearby hit and run that occurred near the area of Mayor McGrath Drive South and Scenic Drive South, where reportedly the same suspect gestured toward a driver of a Subaru Outback, rammed into the vehicle deliberately, then fled the scene. And a short time later, the suspect was then reported at a convenience store along Blue Fox Boulevard in North Lethbridge. He reportedly threatened a staff employee when his car declined when he attempted to purchase some items. He then left the store with the items without paying.
The police subsequently located the vehicle along River Bottom Road North near Softball Valley where the driver was taken into custody without incident. A 47-year-old male, Christopher Haig, is in charge with a total of 14 criminal code offenses, including 5 counts of attempted murder, 3 counts of assault with a weapon, dangerous driving, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing bodily harm, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, utter threats, and theft under $5,000.
The 3 injured victims, a 77-year-old female, a 77-year-old male, and a 46-year-old male, are now recovering and have since been discharged from the hospital.
I think our city is incredibly safe. These incidents are rare, but they do happen, so it's important to be vigilant, but understand that the members of the Lethbridge Police Service are here to keep us all safe.
Haig was determined to not be impaired at the time of the incident, and all victims are reportedly unknown to him. Following a judicial interim release hearing, Haig was remanded in custody and is scheduled to appear in court on Wednesday.
The union representing access-a-ride drivers and dispatchers has announced it has reached a tentative agreement with the city of Lethbridge. Members of Amalgamated Transit Union ATU Local 987 had been working on an expired contract since December of 2024. And in September, the union announced that it was filing for mediation because negotiations had reached an impasse. The union says significant progress was made at the table following a rally on Tuesday evening. More than 50 access-a-ride workers, riders, and other community members gathered in front of City Hall to demand a deal. Union members will vote on the agreement on Sunday. And speaking of buses, a new initiative will literally have art rolling through the streets of Lethbridge. Rolling Views Art Bus Lethbridge is a temporary project featuring 2 buses wrapped with vinyl designs created by local artists. The buses will run along regular transit routes throughout Lethbridge for almost a year, starting in spring of 2026. Artists can apply to participate by creating original artwork. KT Wild, Public Art Coordinator at Allied Arts Council of Lethbridge, says applications will be open until November the 17th.
To bring a new type of public art experience to the community, offer an opportunity for people to connect around something. It is absolutely worth it to be bringing a new kind of public art experience to the city of Lethbridge, where it just travels all around. The buses circulate on multiple routes, so you could be anywhere in town and encounter one of these. It's also like a professional opportunity for local artists. It's important to pay artists for their work, but it could be somebody who works as a painter or a printmaker or even photography, something like that, to apply with an expression of interest that sort of describes you and your art practice and helps highlight what relevant experience you have as a visual artist.
Wild says this opportunity is open to artists or artist teams and collectives at all stages of their career who are residing in or have a meaningful connection to Lethbridge and the region. The municipal election is fast approaching, and BCN continues our series of interviews with local city council candidates and incumbents. Coming up next, Jeanette Roche chats with Lethbridge Mayor incumbent Blaine Higgin, who addresses controversies regarding alleged conflicts of interest. Then she speaks with former television journalist Tom Ralston as he shares his passion for our beautiful city and his desire to represent you on city council. And if you're watching us online, those full interviews are available on our YouTube channel.